Are you stressed and filled with anxiety like I am? Maybe in a bit of pain from that car accident you had a few years ago? Well, the sponsor of today's episode, Hempville CBD, has us covered. They have the highest quality products created by chemists and doctors. Hempville carries everything from CBD to THC dispensary grade without those despicable dispensary prices. Order your Delta 8, 9 edibles and vapes along with the THCA flower and get free shipping when you spend $50 or more at hempvillecbd.com. Check out the link in the description for more details.
Welcome to the Filmistines, the double feature podcast. Join us as we unravel the interwoven experience of the continuous conversation of cinema. Take part in pairing movies with their cursed counterpart, movies that share DNA, or even pairing questionable duos by joining our Patreon at patreon.com/Filmistines. We offer tiers at the $1, $5, and $20 level, where the $5 tier will grant the ability to request films to further the discussion. So grab some popcorn, sit back, and get ready to join the 100-year conversation. This is the Filmistines, where movies are more than just entertainment, they're an experience. And welcome back to another episode of the Filmistines. Thank you for tuning in today. I am joined today by my nocturnal friend, Lucy.
Your not turtle friend?
My not turtle friend. You can join us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for brand new episodes of the Filmistines. Some recent episodes include our 35 important films that we'd like to cover, our top 20 anticipated films for 2024, our first episode of our Rumors and Topics series, and The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songs and Snacks, and District 9. Both have districts.
Both have District 9s in the movies.
Yep, they do, don't they? But today we're discussing the 2016 classic film by Barry Jenkins. Is it classic yet?
No, this is not a classic.
Well, people say things are instant classics, right?
Who says that?
About all kinds of stuff.
Who says
They
that?
used to be a big thing with the the late 90s, early 2000s like voiceover guy in trailers. The instant classic Little Mermaid.
No way.
Yeah.
No.
Well, of course we're talking about Barry Jenkins' Moonlight.
Which is not a classic.
When can it become a classic?
Is Shrek a classic?
I would say so. It's 20 years old.
All right, 20 years. 2036. Classic.
All right, so in 13 years. This movie's been on my radar for a while, especially since I've been getting into film. It was kind of always that companion piece to La La Land, I guess, in my mind, because of the Oscar mix-up. I love La La Land. It's one of my favorite movies. And I never saw Moonlight, and it was, it outdid it. I know you don't like La La Land.
Nope. La La Land is okay, but it is not one of the best movies ever. And since it's, a musical, I guess, of some sort, it gets a slight pass.
It gets a notch up?
Yeah.
If it wasn't a musical, it would be...
No notch.
No notch, okay. Well, how do you feel about Moonlight?
Next. No, I'm just kidding. It wasn't that bad. I'll probably give it a harder time than how I actually felt about it. It was a little bit too maybe artsy and personal for me. Like you could tell this movie was from a very personal part of either Barry's life or Terrell Alvin, who did the play. It was kind of an autobiography of his. So there's a lot of personal feeling here, which is it's not bad. I guess wasn't for me. Some of the shots felt a little bit too much, especially in the beginning. Some of them felt like I was going to get vertigo. And then even that scene towards the end when he's, a grown-up Chiron and he's in the car and he spins for 5 times. A little bit too much. No one spins in a car like that. You know what I'm saying? You know which one I'm talking about?
No, not the one at the end. I remember the one with when they were kids and they were playing with the makeshift ball, and there was a big 5-6 times around all the kids.
Well, there was also the one where it's when we're first introduced to Juan and his drug dealing partner, and we're kind of getting a little sense of the neighborhood or where they're at, and it just keeps spinning around them too, and just keeps spinning and spinning, and that was virtually the first scene. And I don't know, I guess it was a bad start for me. I will say the colors in this film were very gorgeous, especially that scene with his mom when she's silent yelling at him. I thought that was very cool. I guess I appreciate some of the artsiness, but I guess not the vertigo shots.
Yeah, the vertigo shots were interesting. They were a little much, especially the first shot with Juan out in the streets. That one felt like it was probably the longest too, even though I think the one with the kids was probably faster. It wasn't as long. And there's something a little more contextually sensible about the one with the kids. I guess maybe because there were a lot of kids out there. Am I remembering that correctly? It felt like it fit a little better. Maybe it wasn't quite as spirally, I'm not sure.
Yeah, if it was one, I don't remember either with the kids.
It seemed like it fit a little better because there were more characters on screen all at once. And then when with Juan in the very beginning, there were only really, 3 people in focus because there was his lackey talking to someone about their product and Juan, right? And then anyone else was like kind of far away. They weren't even really in focus. And it does come across a little like someone's figured out how to do really cool techniques with watercolor and then they just do it and they don't really go anywhere with it.
Yeah.
Because everyone and their grandma can paint with watercolors. It's the nature of the medium. And then some people can really hone it down and master it in different ways. But it's a very kind of user-friendly medium, which gets kind of looked down upon, right? And it kind of feels like that because long takes are extremely difficult to pull off in a really natural, sensible way. But if you're just going around in circles, you don't really have a long take because you're covering the same ground over and over again.
Yeah, and it was also how fast or how slow your circle is moving. I feel like if they would have done it a bit slower, that would have helped.
Yeah, and maybe, I don't really know how many rounds he made, but maybe just one, and then on that second one we see a little bit something new and then we stop. But I feel like it was like maybe 4.
Yeah, it was way more than 2 for sure.
Yeah, so I feel you there. It's quickly excusable because of how, I don't know, like whimsical he is with the camera. James Laxton and Barry Jenkins. They seem to really understand, for the most part, much more than I ever could or will, what the camera is capable of kind of letting you feel. Because one of my favorite parts about the film in the first section was when Juan would walk away and we were left with Little, it felt like the camera was indicating to us, like, Juan, don't go away, like, don't leave me, kind of thing. I don't want to be left alone. Especially in that scene, that little bit, I should say, where Little was left in the car and Juan went to go chat with Teresa. And we were like peeking around in between the car seat and the window and back to Little. It felt like there was like a little bit of an urgency thing there, like, don't leave me. And so there's this weird kind of looseness that's really neat. So the spiraling, the circling camera at the beginning and a few spots, I don't love just because it's kind of disorienting. Like, it's not I know where I'm at, but I don't like seeing that, like it makes, it spins me around. Like, I don't want to be spun around, maybe that's just because it gives me a bad effect type thing and internally, so it just doesn't land with me on that way. But they managed to use the camera in such a way that's really innocent but not in like a kid is filming, like in The Visit or something, where it's like really chaotic and doesn't have a lot of rhyme or reason to why it's being done the way it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of character development here in this film, and Chiron is a very timid kid. He's very shy. I don't, maybe not shy. He's just timid in this world that he's brought up in, and I think the camera movements definitely help with the timidness of what we're supposed to be feeling with him. So I can see that.
Yeah.
For sure.
And I mean, guess it's worth saying too that kids spin around, so there's this element of innocence that lives throughout the first act. I don't remember the spinning and when he's an adult.
Oh, he's in the car and he's like doing a turn and he's like just turning his wheel and we're turning with him like we're doing donuts.
I don't remember that.
Oh my gosh, yes. It looked cool because, he's in the third act, he's a gangster. He's driving all cool. He's got one hand on the steering wheel just spinning. So it looked cool. He looked cool. He looked like a badass. But the shot was just a bit too much with the spinning.
For your stomach?
Yes. For my vertigo. Me and the old people here, we can't handle these kinds of shots.
Yeah.
I do like some of the topics this movie tries to cover. Not tries. Does a really good job of covering. They did well. It's not a try thing. But some of these topics are, I think they're kind of difficult to film, and they're maybe a little bit on the taboo side to film. Not only do you have this sexuality experimental kind of film of the LGBTQ plus ABC community, but you have a black person in that, club, whatever you want to call them. And then, yeah, you throw in your kind of tropey mom who does drugs, no dad figure. But I really liked the bullying they incorporated here. I don't know if I've ever seen anything quite like it with all these types of difficult themes here. But I think they did a good job making it flow and making it not just diversity for diversity's sake, or I don't know, he's gay, so let's explore masculinity. Like, it felt very cohesive, and I like that. Not to mention all this on top of a coming of age story. Although these kinds of topics typically go with a coming of age story. And I mean, even how they did that, separating the coming of age into 3 separate acts with Little, Chiron, and Black. I like that. I like the very clear separation. I didn't have to think about who's that,
Yeah, I like that each section, each chapter basically had its own coming of age story separate from one another, and then kind of feeding the overall coming of age of someone just becoming comfortable on at least some level, at least on the final note that society doesn't need to dictate your life. Yeah, it's kind of risky to put bullying in your movie of any kind. It's a lot of times cringe.
Yeah.
But it can be really effective if it's not overused, right? And it's not just a mope fest for our main character. And they do a really good job setting up Little Chiron as just he's just the butt of a joke. Like, he doesn't appear to be bullied when he's little for any particular reason. Like, he's just bullied because he's kind of a strange kid. And so they chase him, they call him gay, whatever, and
yeah, because he walks funny.
Yeah. There's no real rhyme or reason. It's just bullying because kids are fucking evil.
Oh, heck yeah.
There's not that these kids don't grow up and become even more evil, I guess, but there's something innocent even about the bullying itself.
Mm-hmm.
But something about introducing Juan first and just showing his powerful performance, I guess just in general, right out of the gate, and then letting Little Chiron kind of intersect him naturally sets the stage for something really natural, I guess. And just, it grounds a situation where you don't really need to be sold anything else. And then, Little Chiron runs into a drug den or whatever they call it, and Juan finds him in there, and he's just, it's that little bit. Juan's performance, I think, is probably top 10 best performance I've ever seen in my life. He's only in the movie for a third of the whole movie. But that introduction to their dynamic sells everything that's to come, and then everything that is to come has everything else to do with little Chiron. It's no longer about Juan, or at least you don't really know, I guess, in those first 10 minutes, but it feels like Juan might be a bigger player, but you quickly realize, especially when the camera keeps being left behind with little Chiron, that Juan's not really a major player in the movie itself. He's a major player, obviously, in little Chiron's mind. We see that later echoed. I mean, I can see that not being sold for some people, how little Chiron, I guess future, when he grows up black, would basically just completely emulate Juan's appearance.
Heck yeah, he looks just like him. His car is just like his. His attitude is just like his. I mean, yeah.
His gentleness is even like him.
Who does? How can you not see that?
Yeah, and I can see people maybe not knowing how to digest that.
Okay.
And
I mean, the car thing has to have you sold at least. Like that little figure he had in the front of his car. He had one just like it.
It's such a small but big thing. It reconfirms, and it's beautifully done, because it's the beginning of the final act, where after a 35-minute period where we don't see Juan at all, we're reminded of Juan first, but then we're confirmed in our mind how big of an impact Juan had on Black's life. And of course, he's still hanging out with Teresa when he's a teenager and stuff. He's being taken care of by her to some degree, and she's a real safe haven in his life. So we know Juan's like there in spirit.
Yeah.
So he's, Juan's having an impact on Chiron without even being present. And so I really think it's really neat to echo that with some time in between where we don't see Juan, we're reminded, and then we're just gut punched, because, if you watched a lot of movies, you think Juan's going to die. He's a drug dealer. You think something's going to happen to him and this is going to fucking murder Chiron, right? Something,
Yeah.
But they don't give us that satisfaction because it's not Juan's story.
That's not what it's about, yeah.
I like that they do that. I like that they never give you the satisfaction to distract you from what's important here. Juan's important to Chiron, but the death of Juan would get in the way of Chiron, coming to terms with himself. Juan was a stepping stone in that, and for Chiron, a huge one, many stepping stones for him to become comfortable with himself. It just took many years to realize that to varying degrees, but I'm glad we were kind of rejected that typical kind of route we would see. I don't know what it is about Mahershala Ali's performance, especially when he first meets Chiron, when he goes through the window and he's licking his lips, he's touching his hands, he's like being just...
He's being so inviting.
Inviting in a world, in a, on a street, after he just dealt with a lackey of his that sells crack.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like it would be an inviting place. In a drug den, just, being chased by bullies.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't trust how inviting he was, even after he took him to eat at Waffle House or whatever diner they were at.
Yeah.
Even then, I didn't really trust him. Neither did Chiron, but it wasn't until...
That's because Chiron doesn't trust anyone.
That's true.
And we've watched too many movies to trust Juan.
That's also very true. We know. But I guess it wasn't until he took him to Teresa, have this motherly, sweet, kind figure, that we're like, oh, okay, she likes him. He's good with us. He's cool.
And I love that we never get very much exposition for Juan, and it's really kind of neat when he takes her to Teresa's, and Teresa lives in a different place. She doesn't live in the hood.
Yeah.
She lives somewhere else. She lives in a really nice, maybe historic district area. And how does Juan know Teresa? Are they childhood friends or something? Like, there's something there that's really, I guess, whimsical in the sense that it builds your imagination in that route. And like I said, I like that the introduction to Teresa through the car, and he's like, I'm gonna get Teresa to talk to you. You won't talk to me. You won't. I feed you. You don't talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I know someone who will get you to talk.
Yeah.
And then little Chiron's just like, all right, he just I mean, I don't know. He's not even really like, all right. He's just kind of in his own world. He's probably a little scared. He's probably just always a little scared because that's what keeps him alive.
Yeah.
And
me too, man. Me too.
Yeah.
You always have to be a little scared.
And then, I mean, the first act just goes on and on without almost anything out of little Chiron. We get the most we get's probably about between him and Kevin.
Yeah.
Which is really wonderfully done because in retrospect, it only makes that scene stronger because he has this unknown understanding of why he's so comfortable with Kevin. A, because Kevin's fucking nice to him and probably grew up with him. There's that level of just familiarity. But two, he's entering puberty or whatever, and something else might be unlocking in him. Mm-hmm. And Kevin's the only one who really kind of gets him on any level. And you find out more about that throughout the movie, of course, and it makes that little soccer scene a little more powerful in retrospect, because their relationship was important to Chiron from the very beginning.
Yeah, and Kevin's one of the few characters here that is nice to him and looks out for him when they're little and they kind of have that little boy fight, whatever. He does that because Kevin tells him that he needs to learn to stand up. I don't think he says stand up for yourself, but he tells him he needs to learn to not be scared,
or else he's gonna be picked on for the rest of his life.
Yeah. Which, come on, that's the best friend right there.
But it's also kind of funny because that same attitude oppresses his actual feelings, conforming to society, trying to fit in a mold that's just not completely made for you. Which is kind of funny. That scene also at the same time oppresses a future Chiron into someone he's not, which just makes all that football scene even more powerful. Yeah, and of course one of the second star moments of young little Chiron is with his mom when he's being bullied by his fucking mom. He's being taken advantage by his mom. When he's a teenager, he gets robbed by his mom.
Hell yeah, he gets robbed.
And I love that there's never really a focus on them. It's a focus on his uncertainty and his scaredness and his uncomfortableness at home. They never have a moment of real sincerity. It's just her trying to take advantage of him or her scaring him out of the house, basically.
Yeah, we have a few moments where he tries to initiate that. When I think at one point she's sleeping on the couch and he puts a blanket over her. I think there's another scene where, he's in trouble for hanging out with Juan. So she's kind of looking out for him, I guess, and tells him to go read a book, not to watch TV. Which, that's not very heartfelt, but at least I guess it's a mom that kind of cares.
When they first introduce Paula, it's actually kind of really interesting because Juan brings little Chiron home, and she immediately is like, "What are you doing with my son?" Like there's like this moment of there's almost this moment of this mom may actually not be that bad.
Yes,
right out of the gate, and
that's exactly what I thought.
And it's shattered.
Yes,
immediately.
Yes,
and it's powerful.
I was like, why is this little kid running away from home? He obviously has a mom that cares. Yeah, she looks like she's a nurse, so maybe she works a lot. Maybe that's his problem. Yep. That she's never home because she's got to put in overtime to put food on the table.
Perfectly set up, isn't it?
Oof. And then they just gut punch you. No, she's actually pretty awful.
She's as bad as it gets. I guess she's not homeless. Not yet. Yeah, and then of course the silent yelling scene is awesome and haunting in multiple ways, just because the visual of that mom, looking at the camera for one.
Yes.
And we're on Chiron's level. But knowing that she's yelling at, what, a 10-year-old Chiron?
Yes.
What is this boy doing? What
has he even done?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's literally haunting to him. He dreams about it. It's been with him forever.
Yeah. I think the first act is just really powerful. One of my favorite scenes from that is the scene where he's in a group of classmates and they're all just dancing. And it's the only time in this whole movie that he's a kid that lets loose. And that was just really sad. That was sad to watch because he is a kid. He's so innocent. And he's like not even caring who's watching. And this was a moment for me when I realized, I guess, that he wasn't shy, that he was just timid and scared. But he can still be a freaking kid.
He's bullied into submission. He's not submissive, you know?
Yes.
By not just the bullies either, by just how he feels in society, the uncomfortable place he is in the world, you know?
Yeah, that's a very good way of putting it. And I guess the other powerful scene in this first act is when Juan's teaching him how to swim. But that wasn't sad. That wasn't sad. That was just like a very sweet and tender and oh my god, he finally has a dad moment.
Yeah, that was low hanging fruit for sure.
Yes.
But well deserved and earned for sure too.
Yeah, I mean, how many times have you seen in movies where someone's looking out for somebody else's kid? And it's not, your best friend comes over and your mom bakes you bagel bites looking out. This is your child now. You are teaching this child grown-ass people lessons. And there's just something so tender about that.
There's something nice in when adults treat kids like adults, like a peer.
Yes.
Because there's just as much for adults to learn from kids than there are kids to learn from adults. And I don't know if it's just the backdrop of this movie kind of taking place in the hood of Miami, this neglected kid who doesn't have a dad or a present dad, who has a mom who's fucking terrible in every way.
Yeah. Juan is treating him like a human. Something about wanting to learn from each other.
It's almost like Juan is actively trying to give him a break from being a kid because his kid life sucks. It's almost like he's trying to give him a taste of what real human connection looks like. Like all these things. I think he may even say that these things don't matter. This bullying that's going on, your mom doing the thing she's doing, this shit doesn't matter. It's not real. It's not what life is worth living for, You gotta find that in your own way. You gotta make what you can out of life in the best way. These aren't those things that are what life is all about. You just have to, grin and bear it here and there, especially because you're a kid and everything. That's kind of obvious, right? Self-implied. But I don't know, there's just something really... you'd expect it at Juan to treat someone like an adult, whoever,
Mm-hmm.
That's probably part of his flaws. He can't baby anyone. He's probably a little too real and gentle and just full of too much wisdom for his own good kind of thing.
Yeah, he's respectful.
So it's crazy because it's probably, that's probably the moment where Chiron looks back and is like, I want to be like Juan, and then I feel like you can't help to believe, or you can't help to think that, like, how many times is the character and the audience inspired by the same moment? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Oftentimes a character will be inspired by X, Y, and Z, and then the whole thing is inspiring to the audience. But Juan is, I wish I had a Juan in my life, kind of thing. Even if you already have one, you can't have too many Juans, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
You can't just have Juan.
You just... And of course that's where we get the story of Juan growing up in Cuba and, being told by some Cuban lady that black boys look blue in Moonlight.
Mm-hmm. And I do like that they reference that at the end of the movie. They play with little Chiron, and he's looking out in the moonlight, and he looks so black, he's blue. in that moment. I do like that. They knew what they had here with colors for sure.
Yeah, totally. I can't sort out in my mind exactly what is meant by that, other than half of it setting the mood for the movie in its entirety. It just, that first, all the way to that first beach scene where he tells that story, it is kind of a mood setter, I feel like. And I can't sort out exactly what else it means though in my head. I do like the presence of Chiron only really talking with Juan. I mean, sort of. He's usually, I guess he's mostly talked at, but there's like, you feel like you get the most out of Chiron and Juan's dynamic when they're eating in the first act. That kind of culminates in the end where he asks Juan what a faggot is and if he sells drugs and if he sells to his mom.
Yeah, he just dropped a bomb right there with those 3 questions in a row. And just watching Juan's face as he's, kind of torn and embarrassed. And, those are difficult questions for a parent to hear from a little kid. Like, you're a little kid. Don't worry about those things.
And they progressively get worse.
Yeah, but he like you just said, he's too real. He's not gonna lie to him. He's not gonna protect him from what? He's gonna tell him the truth, but just watching his heart break as Chiron is starting to face these things, which he's always faced them, but nothing beats like saying stuff out loud, and then him asking, "Do you sell to my mom?" That's probably the most heartbreaking one, for sure.
Yeah, I've never seen a movie where the saddest part is at the end of the first act.
I know.
Yeah, and it's just another excellent performance out of Mahershala Ali.
Yeah, the end of the first act, which like right before I knew it was the end to the first act, I was getting ready to just sob. But I don't know, I guess my body was saving it for when Juan actually died. But then we didn't see him die. We didn't see anything. So my body, I guess, just pushed it back in.
Yeah, they didn't. It's really a neat thing in this movie. They never. I'd argue the only real like tearjerker is when he puts Chiron in the water to swim, but it's a different kind of tearjerker. It's just a teary tearjerker. It's not a let them flow tearjerker.
Yeah. It's like, aw.
They never quite give you that satisfaction of release, which is
cruel.
But Chiron's whole life has been cruel.
Yeah, experience a little bit of his life, I guess.
It's like a 4D movie.
Yeah. Because he doesn't cry either. Till the end.
And you can see him asking those questions, little Chiron, and it being Juan rubbing off on him a little bit. Those are questions Juan would ask if he was 10 years old. He would just be straight up.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
And it's kind of coming back to bite Juan in the ass.
Yeah.
It's like,
what did I teach him?
What do I say to this? Because those are, yeah, like you said, they're questions you don't want to answer because they're a little too real. Yeah. And he answers them in the best way possible. I can't get it out of my head, like the shot and stuff of how that was shot. If this movie was as good as the first act was, it would be probably my top 5 favorite movies of all time.
Agreed. Definitely agreed.
Not that it falls apart or anything, but I definitely think it lands on such a high fucking note that it has nowhere to go but down.
Yeah.
Just a little bit. So definitely, it's just kind of funny, I guess, in that way. But I like that's like our first little coming of age. It's coming of age. That's a coming of age moment for this 10-year-old or however old he is, 11. And
man, that's coming out of your life. This kid's already lived. It's not him getting his first period or him finding out he likes somebody for the first time. It's too much. Moving on to the second act. I think this is probably my favorite scene in the whole movie for a different reason than the others. When he beats the shit out of Terrell with the chair.
I know, and that's like,
That was awesome.
and it's so fast. They don't linger on it. It's just like, I can't believe that just happened.
I know.
Kind of like a crazy ass thing happening at school. It's over before you can even begin to think what the fuck is happening.
And it's the quiet kid.
And it's the quiet kid.
It's so good. It's so good.
And that's another instance of, you know, him coming of age when he's 16, 17. And it's like our first instance of him unlocking this masculinity, I guess, of like, I'm no longer gonna be fucked with.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw that build up in the first act with him and Kevin. Well, I guess we kind of see build up the whole movie, while at the same time he's deconstructing his own masculinity because he doesn't fit in his own skin. Yeah, that's probably my favorite bit of the middle part for sure.
Yeah.
And then he gets arrested.
Then he gets arrested. Yeah. And the whole time I'm just thinking, like, yeah, hit him with the chair.
And that's kind of funny because that's like the meme.
That's the trope. Yeah. Yeah.
That's funny.
The chair. Hit him with the chair.
Yeah, I guess I feel like the middle section is the weaker of the three, simply maybe because it, I don't know, is maybe more of the same but a little bit more understood by Chiron because he's in high school, he's being bullied for the same reasons, except he's getting the shit beat out of him now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like, it really shouldn't be looked at as lesser or anything, but it's almost, because I'm sure it's supposed to make you feel this way, that you're supposed to begin to feel kind of frustrated with Chiron. Like, step up for yourself, unlock yourself, you know, go Super Saiyan, like, do something, anything.
Yeah.
And then he does, and he gets arrested. It's just like, God damn, that was not that too far. Although it's not. That kid deserved it. He deserved probably much worse.
He did. He sure did.
Because, I don't know, my favorite scene actually might be when he's caught in the streets with those two guys, and they're like in his face, like, you know, you don't know where things are going to go. He doesn't want to look at them, and then he says something. That's kind of another instance of that build up towards that end of that part of the act, where he's like, what'd you say? And it's just like, where is this going?
Don't say anything, Chiron.
It's really good.
Yeah, one of the pieces of dialogue that sticks out to me in that scene is when the I don't know what she is, what she was, like a school counselor or teacher or attorney. I'm not really sure. And she calls Chiron a boy, and he says, "I'm no boy."
Yeah.
And then she's like, "Well, you're not a man, because if you were a man, you would have had, 3-4 other men around you, like he did." And then he goes and like ices his face, just submerges his face in ice.
Yeah.
Like, damn. He's still a boy. He's still a boy in society's eyes. He hasn't grown.
Well, society's not letting him grow in the way that he needs to. I guess I do kind of like that we are never explicitly told anything about Juan. You know, we don't start with the funeral. We don't see his grave.
Yeah.
He's just kind of mentioned in passing, you know. It's like, how long has it been? You know, what kind of effect has this had on Teresa and Chiron?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just really cool because it kind of strips away the melodrama and gives us little snapshots of Chiron's life instead. And of course, I love that. I either need super melodrama like The Whale, or I need something like The Florida Project, where we're just dropped in the life of these kids or whoever for 24 hours, and we see what they're up to, and they burn houses down and shit and move on.
Yep.
I don't want anything in between.
I welcome that melodrama, although it works here. It works here. We're not, like you said, this is not Juan's story.
Like I said, I really did like the introduction of the third act where he's in his car, he's got the do-rag on, he's obviously emulating Juan as his shield basically in life. He's huge now. he doesn't look like even he could be remotely the same person.
For real. Until you look at the poster.
Yeah. He's got a similar face across the board.
Yeah. The third act for me is still as childlike as the rest of the movie, although it feels more childlike than the first and second act for me. It's Chiron never really growing up in the sense of finding someone or finding, peace with who he is. So it's after he gets that phone call from Kevin, it feels like there's still two teenagers in the infatuation state, and I like that.
I mean, I like what you say a lot actually, because he's now entered this pretend mode, but he's faked it, he's pretended until he's made it. He is now a drug dealer, but we know in his heart that he's not. He's completely uncomfortable in the world, but he is just completely now conformed to society. So he's pretending more now than he was 15 years ago, 20 years ago, however long it's been since the beginning, the first act.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then when he goes to see Kevin, it feels like an awkward first date that you'd have when you're 14, 15 years old.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah. It's excellent.
Even I'm like, oh my gosh, are they going to talk?
Yeah.
Who's going to say what?
These men are like 35 years old.
Are they going to kiss? I'm waiting for it.
Yeah. It's kind of surprising. This movie's not very long. It's an hour and 50 with credits, right? So hour and 45 without, right? Or something like that. But it feels like it breathes so long on so many scenes. It's just so moody and atmospheric, but it's not quite melodramatic in that way. It's just, I guess because we get so little out of Chiron, there's so much literal silence that we're kind of, it drives us crazy in some ways, for better and worse.
That's what I was feeling there. There wasn't a time or a scene or anywhere where I felt like I was bored or it was drug out too long or just something that made me uncomfortable about the pacing. But I felt uncomfortable about the pacing, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. So I assumed it was the length.
But it's not very long.
Not. So that's very interesting, you saying that. There was a lot of silence.
Coming from Chiron specifically, too, because there was also a lot of dialogue. But
yeah,
our major player here wasn't giving us much of anything for other than body language. But as human beings and our psychology, we need more than that, obviously. If someone's mad at you or someone's not saying something and they should be saying something, you get frustrated with them. You're like, or you get something with them, frustrated, not necessarily in a bad way, but just kind of like, what did I do? What did I say?
You get uncomfortable.
Yeah, exactly.
And there were a lot of things that Chiron did by himself too. As a kid, we saw him, either cooking food or taking a bath or, I guess, normal daily things, going to school maybe. And then as a teenager, we also saw him wash his face in ice cold water and waiting by the stairs to see where the bullies were at, and him just walking inside the house. Yeah, there was a lot of dialogue with the mom there, but he didn't say much. And then as an adult, then he was really alone. That's probably when we saw the least amount of characters in the third act. And he's cooking by himself. He's in the car by himself. He's just doing things by himself. So those things take time to do and give us some of that silence.
Yeah, I think we got more close-ups of Chiron, of Black, when he's an adult, when he was an adult in the third act, indicating some kind of him maybe being in his head more, him having less of any kind of outward projection of himself. The most we get out of him in that when he is an adult is probably when he's fucking with that guy about, you not giving, where's my money? You miscounted and you calling me a liar, and then he's just messing with him. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Chiron, we know what you're doing here. You're demonstrating your authority scaring this guy.
How did you feel about the scene where he goes to see his mom at the rehab? Did that feel out of place to you?
It was visually out of place, sure, because it was at like an institution, you know, it was weird looking for sure.
Daryl.
It's no doubt important to see his mom again, I think. I thought when it first started that he was still in Miami and he was going to drive to Atlanta. And I thought that was a little awkward. But then I was like, oh, we're already in Atlanta. I was like, okay, so this works. This is fine. This is making sense. And then, you know, of course, he drives back to Miami for Kevin. Yeah, when he goes to see his mom, it's only the real resolution I feel like we get in the whole movie. And it still feels empty because it's coming from his mom.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, I didn't give you the love that you needed. I should have been there. Yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, almost like rehab told her to say that.
Uh-huh. Yeah, exactly. You know, like you didn't have the being and emotional capacity and willpower before to at least say these things, you know? How many times has Chiron heard this before? You know? How many times does it make him cry?
Yeah.
So it's just so manipulative of her on him, you know, and so it's. I mean, I think it's well done. It is a scene that stands out in a stranger way, and like out of context kind of way, being like out of place or something. I'm not sure exactly what that is, and it's at the same time contextually echoed and matched in that exact same way because what she's saying is out of context. This is not something Paolo would normally say, the Paolo we know, you know? And so it kind of matches where they're at in that way.
Yeah, and isn't there a scene where Juan tells him that he hated his mama, but that he wished he would have talked to her before she died?
Yeah, he was like, I hated her when she was alive, and now I miss her every day.
Yeah. So maybe that's what this
there's
is.
A little bit of Juan coming through in Chiron.
Oh my god. I'm done.
I think I read that scene was originally going to be the opening shot of the third act, which I could see working really well too. It may have felt less out of place, actually. I'm sure that kept Barry up at night. Where to fucking place that. Oh, I'm sure all this does. You know, editing this, I bet you was editing anything that you know that's great. You know, that you know you've got something really meaningful captured. I'm sure it keeps people up at night in a good way, you know. But I could see that. I could see that as an opening third act shot working a little better and setting the mood. That could be the mood shot for the rest of the third act instead of, because I think we start out in the car and we see that he's basically adopted Juan's persona, which we can get in bite sizes throughout up to meeting Kevin. We don't, because we can get his appearance immediately when he's sitting with his mom and then him licking his lips and stuff, and he picks up some of Juan's mannerisms and everything.
Yeah.
And then when he's driving, we can then see the thing in the dashboard and stuff, and
yeah,
it would have been maybe dripped out a little better in that way. But because the way they did it was we opened with Juan looking like, dressed like Juan, acting like Juan, but with the chosen introduction to the third act, it feels a little bit more of a, purposeful kind of nod to the importance of Juan instead of the relationship between Chiron and his mom.
Yeah, reconciling with his mom. Okay.
But I think either way works. I don't know which would be more effective. It's, it's hard to say, but.
Yeah, it's hard to say without watching it that way. Yeah, I did see an interview where Trevante and Andre, who play, the adult characters here, that they didn't meet each other until they did the car scene where he's giving Kevin a ride to his apartment.
So they filmed that first?
Yeah. They filmed that first, and that's when they met.
Okay. Yeah, I also saw that the different Chirons didn't know each other.
Oh, cool.
While filming, to not pick up any, isms between each other.
That's pretty cool. And, I mean, they did a great job because all three of them have that same scared, timid look.
Yeah. And it's really amazing because you as a director, you definitely would want to reject any kind of echoing that might happen between actors being the same character but years beyond, because you go through such immense change throughout life, especially someone who's under so much pressure, so you wouldn't, I think it's stylistically really interesting to be like, all right, you're a 16-year-old who is into these things, figure out what that character looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're a 10-year-old into these things. These things are different that they're into, they're going to behave differently, but as a great director and screenwriter and the
Mm-hmm.
original source material and everything, the important details are there, but they're allowed to kind of be flexible with everything else to fit that character, which is, I think, really neat.
I wonder how the characters in, well, I guess just the character in The Big Bang Theory, so our older Sheldon, if he had any influence with young Sheldon. Because I know, I'm blanking on his name, but the actor who plays, adult Sheldon, he does voiceovers for young Sheldon, so he's connected there, and it's the same director, right? Chuck Lowry, whatever his name is.
Yeah, same producer and showrunner.
Okay.
Yeah, a bunch of different directors. Every episode's different.
Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha. So there's got to be something there.
Yeah, you got to wonder about that, especially because older Sheldon changes quite a bit throughout the show.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'd like to see what an early Sheldon is told to act like.
Yeah.
Because they're different. They're very different still. That would be hard, I guess, for the younger Sheldon, because there's so much Big Bang Theory out there. There's tons of episodes and everything. So it'd be kind of hard to maybe not see some Big Bang Theory.
Yeah.
Versus this, it's a movie happening all in the same few months.
There's no spoilers.
Yeah,
here.
there's no spoilers. So that would be kind of a funny thing. I guess it's kind of like Joel and Ellie in The Last of Us, how they were encouraged to not play the games, kind of thing. But on the other side of that, Tom Holland wanted to play Uncharted while he was playing Drake in the Uncharted movie. So it's kind of a funny thing. He obviously didn't understand. Either they told him, all right, don't act anything, see that character and just don't act anything like him. And that's what he did. Or he got the total wrong idea of who Drake was.
Yeah, and similarly, like the Harry Potter kids.
Mm-hmm.
They were all told to read the book.
They were. Oh.
But Tom Felton, who plays Draco Malfoy, did not read the book. Yeah. And he's a fucking great
He's arguably
Draco.
The best. Yeah.
He's the best villain.
I didn't know that. That's cool. It's always kind of funny to imagine a production filming things out of order, right? They filmed that car scene before they had the diner scene. That's so funny to think about. Even I've been part of little things where we did exactly that, and you're just like, when you're in the trenches of it, it doesn't feel that way. You're just getting what you can get done. What makes sense to get done here, you're going to get all done here right now, so there's like the context of it all doesn't matter so much, but when you're watching it and you're like, that was filmed, 3 days apart, and this later scene was filmed way before this earlier scene.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, that's weird.
Yeah,
it's a very weird feeling.
In the Scream,
which one? The new one?
Not the newest one. The Jenna Ortega one. The first Jenna Ortega.
Scream 5.
Scream 5. Whatever that was called. I think they filmed part of it, and I don't know. Maybe this belongs in the rumor episode. But I was reading somewhere that they filmed part of it when she was still like 17. Oh. And then they finished off with her being 18. Because they had to like reshoot something.
That's funny.
Or they shot something somewhere, like something like that.
Yeah, I think you told me that they reshot the intro when she was 18. I think that's what you told me.
Yes, but then the rest of the movie, she's 17.
Yeah, that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But Jenna Ortega looks like she's 15, so she's good.
The whole time, yeah.
And then we have Evil Dead Rise, where they filmed the entire shoot in chronological order, which is nuts. That's also nuts. Like,
that
what?
Sounds like that's unheard of at this point.
Yeah, I would imagine it's very rare, but I'm not too sure.
Hmm.
Yeah, so man, what did you think of the big moment where Chiron, stumbles into this diner, and it's really excellently started, I guess. I want to say set up, but just introduced where he comes in. Kevin doesn't recognize him immediately. He recognizes Kevin, obviously, and he sits at the bar and stuff, and it's just like, it's really awkward, but really romantic at the same time.
Yeah. It's, I mean, like I previously said, it's two teenagers finding each other again after years. And it's so cute. I mean, he makes him food. He brings out wine, and he takes out his
grill.
And like, oh my god, it's just I can see myself doing that exact same thing at 16.
Taking your grill out?
Yeah, taking my grill out, exactly. And, he plays him a song. God, that's cheesy as fuck.
It's like,
a song reminded me of you. That's
why he called
the
him.
phone call he got. Yes. Oh my
him.
god, it's so fucking adorable.
Yeah.
I loved it.
And it's so funny. And it's like, it's just the right amount of like really innocent melodrama that doesn't feel, like it would be in a cheesy. It does, but it doesn't feel like it would be in a cheesy high school movie. It feels like it feels familiar.
Yeah. And I'm glad Chiron got his moment. Whether you like it or not, that's something that happens in almost everybody's life. Your first date, or your first infatuation, your first love. And that whole giddiness and awkwardness that comes with it. And, he had a harsh upbringing, so it just makes me happy for him that he got that.
Yeah, and there's an element of reservedness in there that in Chiron that's always gonna be there, right? And you're just like, say something to the motherfucker,
Tell him you miss him.
Yes,
I don't know.
anything. God damn, this is your moment. And speaking of which, I do want to bring up it's almost maybe trite to bring it up, but I feel like people maybe aren't going far enough with the idea of water in the movie. And the visual of water pops up in moments of comforting Chiron, right?
Yeah.
And kind of him finding some kind of moments of peace in his life, right? It lets him let loose. It allows him to just breathe and be. And it twists into this symbol in his life of like dependency, where he runs to it. For example, when he gets beat up, he goes and puts ice on his face in the sink, right? And he has these different moments with different bodies of water that kind of add to the oppression in his life that he's instilling on himself, that are self-fulfilling.
Yeah.
And I really, 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 really like it when, Kevin comes out with the bottle. He's all coming out all stupid, like a little 16-year-old. Yeah. Because he's, real excited and everything. And, he's like, you want some wine? And Chiron's like, no, I don't drink wine. I drink it too much and stuff. But we've never seen him drink wine. He could be lying. We've never seen him drink anything. We've never seen him with any other liquid other than water.
That's true.
In different forms. And Chiron, I love that he pours them in like the stupid diner cups too. It's so funny. And I guess it is the ultimate relief in some way. It's not, because they don't let us have the satisfaction of, oh, he gets Kevin. We get the satisfaction of Chiron's walls are finally coming down.
Yes.
And that wine indicates that change, which is, I guess, just really neat. I like that a lot.
No, definitely. And I think another important factor is that they didn't make them hook up, which is where I thought it was going. But, like the last scene was going to be them either kissing or hooking up or something sexual. And it wasn't. And that made it even worse
Yeah.
in a good way.
Yeah, that's what I was saying when they don't give us that satisfaction of like Chiron getting someone, or like, you
Yes.
know, they give us just the bare bones satisfaction of Chiron might have a friend in life at the very least, you know?
Chiron got vulnerable.
Yeah. And I think that through line of water to wine symbolism is really fucking cool in a movie like this. A movie that you would imagine would be charged with a little bit more of an agenda, with a little bit more of a proper coming of age story, with a little bit more of a, you know, maybe Oscar bait kind of self-serving thing going on here, and it isn't any of that. It feels like it's like a Florida Project kind of snippet of a life with intent, and on the back of deconstructing what society has to say about who they think you should be, or who they think you obviously are. Like you just are. You don't. It's not a should situation. You just are this person, and you're going to be that person. And I think that target where we land is really just perfect, because and the backdrop never changes. We're at this diner, and then he takes us to his crib where it's gated. It's not only gated from the outside, like where they walk into the main floor, but his windows are gated. You know, it's like he's still in like not, you know, it's a familiar place still, and it's a place where you can imagine his mom coming out from around the corner, yelling at him.
Yeah.
It's a place where he might wake up from night terrors because of, you know, the place is too familiar because of the trauma that may live in the walls, you know? And it ends up being Chiron's first moment of, like, you know, vulnerability, like you said. And that through line is one of the coolest things I've ever seen in a movie.
Yeah, it's cool. It's clever as fuck. And I didn't really pay attention to the water symbolism until you mentioned it. And there was this scene in the first act where Chiron is heating up water on the stove, and he goes and pours that water in the tub, and then he takes a bath. And it's almost like it's the first instant of any warmness associated with the water.
Yeah.
Like a comfort. You know, it's not the swimming out there with Juan. It's not the ice cold submerging of the head. It's not, you know, out there getting intimate with Kevin by the beach. It's a pot of hot water so he can feel warm.
And it's really, I mean, I'd forgotten about that. I mean, it just shows the excellence, the sheer perfection as much, you know, in this movie is, because they solidify that feeling with Juan at the beach. That's it. And then, I think that happens before they go to the beach, right?
I'm not sure when it happened.
And then so it only works in retrospect. You're like, fuck, they were setting up the symbolism.
Yeah. Way before.
Before you know, it's genius.
It is genius. And I you know, it's just, it's stuff you don't think about. Or at least I don't, and hopefully I start thinking about that. You know, to me, he just took a bath, and maybe the mom didn't pay the bill, so there was no hot water. Like, that's my thought. You know, she was using up the money to buy drugs, so there was no hot water. But then you say shit like the water and wine, and I'm like, oh my god. He was heating up his own water for warmth. I don't know, for what? There's something there that's so clever. Who thinks of this shit, man? Good job, Barry.
It's even sadder because he, like you just said, he has to heat up his own water.
Oh
He has to give his own warmth to himself. He has to love himself. But he can't even do that internally, so he has to do that through heating up water.
He has to do that physically. Poor Chiron. Oh my god. See, this first act just gets more powerful the more we talk about it.
It's a good movie.
It's a good movie.
All right, man. Well, thank you for watching this movie with me.
Thank you for making me watch this movie.
Do you have a budget guess for me?
I do, but I had no idea where to place this. I gave it 10 million. But I have no idea if that's too little, too low. It won what? Best Picture?
It won a few things, yeah. Best Picture.
Like that means anything?
Yeah.
So, yeah, 10 million.
It's unlike any other production you've ever seen. I think I can say that for you. I can say for myself for sure. You know, and I assume it's going to be unlike anything we ever will see after too. It's probably just going to be a special little thing. So
that makes me think I'm way off.
It's not Ford versus Ferrari. You know, you're like, that's obviously $100 million movie, right? And that production when you see that production, it's hard to define, but when you see, you're like, yep, 80 to $120 million.
Yes.
Like you said at the very, very beginning, it's an artsy fartsy movie. How do you quantify that with dollars? All right, I'm with you. The only reason I'm going on and on about this is because the price tag of this movie is unbelievable.
Jesus, what is it?
The budget was $1.5 million.
Wow. 1 million?
1.5.
And that's one to me, girl math.
It's pretty nuts.
That's insane.
Pretty nuts. It's probably, accounting for inflation, of course, it's probably among the greatest success stories of a film as far as like the production of it goes. $1.5 million for this, that's unfucking believable.
That is unbelievable. I still don't believe you. I think you're lying.
Says it right here, according to Wikipedia. It's got 2 citations too. That's crazy.
2 citations.
It does. And apparently at the box office it made $65 million. So not crazy at the box office. I'm actually a little surprised by that. Of course, that is, you know, close to 60 times the budget. So
Also true.
That's awesome.
That's insane. All right, Barry Jenkins. Jenkins.
Because it makes the whale look even expensive. It's like, what? The whale was in one room or one apartment. This was it was all over the place. It's awesome. That's super cool. Love it. Yeah, man. Well, thank you for watching this movie. More importantly though, thank you for talking about this movie with me. I hope you enjoyed this talk.
I did. My talking about it made this movie go up a little bit for me on my like. I feel like I started a little bit too harsh there in the beginning, calling it an artsy fartsy film.
It is though, you know.
But you know, it was just a few shots that got to me for sure.
Yeah.
They should just put a vertigo warning, like they do for seizures.
At the front of video games.
Yeah. Don't they do that for movies too?
I don't know about movies.
I feel like they've done it for a movie.
It's at the front of every video game during the splash screens. It's like, you know, if you experience seizures, you know, talk to your doctor before you play in this game. Yeah. If you feel weird playing the game, put the game down immediately. Just
a little disclaimer, then it'd be good. But no, yeah, this was a great film. Is it in my top? Maybe not.
What would it be on your letterbox? What score? We haven't done that in a while.
Jesus, I don't know. Probably a 3.5, if not a 4.
Nice.
What would you give it? It's great. I'd give it a 2.
A 2.5, yeah.
2.5?
Yeah.
For real?
No, I'm just kidding.
Oh.
No, this is one of these rare movies. I say that, but there's been like 4 of them this year. That's pretty rare though, right?
That's still super rare. I've given everything like 3 or above.
3 to 5. Yeah. Mario 5.
Yeah.
John Wick 5. This
real.
Movie 3.
3.5, sir.
Yeah, this movie has been on my mind a lot lately since we watched it. As a good movie should be. If you walk away from a movie and you're thinking that's a really great movie and it doesn't stick with you, either rewatch it or maybe it's not as good as you think. It's kind of my whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the reverse of that, if a movie is really good and it doesn't leave your mind for some period of time, it obviously needs to be thought out and investigated in some way or another.
Like how thoughtful?
like you just find yourself, like how thoughtful in your daily life.
Yeah.
Like you just catch yourself thinking about certain bits of the movie or certain scenes. Because the one scene I keep thinking about, I should say, one visual that keeps popping off in my head is when Chiron, I think it's an older Chiron, is sleeping or he's in bed or something, and we see Kevin like against this wall, and he's just kind of smiling, and we're getting close-ups of him, and he's just looking pretty. And it's like a real brief 15-20 second shot of him, maybe two different shots, a close-up and a cowboy shot. And that scene just and I close my eyes, I see what Chiron sees. I see Kevin. I'm like,
you see seductive Kevin.
Yeah. And then not to mention, everything when Juan first meets Chiron and the drug den, I see him coming through that window, and he's just, he's dusting his hands off and he's licking his lips. And notice what I'm saying here is hardly any dialogue. If any dialogue is it's just the visuals are just nuts. Yeah. Juan coming through that window and just looking at Chiron is just probably my top 5, top 10 favorite things I've ever seen in a movie. I don't think there's a scene like that in a movie I like more, A Clockwork Orange, more than that scene from Moonlight. I think I like that scene more in Moonlight than anything from A Clockwork Orange. But I like Clockwork Orange for different reasons, but there's just something so unbelievably impressionable, I guess, about it. It's kind of like when your TV is left on for too long and it sits on one scene and it burns the image into your TV. That happened with a few bits in this movie. So there's bits like that happening in my mind.
Yeah, you should get that checked out.
On the daily, yeah. And so there's just, you gotta wonder why that is, and then not to mention all the performances and the dialogue are just, I can't remember the dialogue exactly because I'm a fucking idiot, but I can remember how it made me feel, and that is sticking with me quite a bit. And so this movie fits somewhere between a 4.5 for me. I can't decide which way I want to go. Mm-hmm. Out of the gate, it was a 4.0 for sure. But it's a rare movie that is, attached itself to my heart, kind of like The Elephant Man or something.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. A lot of movies don't leave me thinking about them much longer besides to prep for the episodes. But I can imagine it's similar to how maybe certain music makes me feel. Either the song is a popular song or whatever, but it's in that scene. Like, where is my mind at the end of Fight Club? I just see that scene.
You see that scene?
Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
That is unfortunate. But it's there.
That's so funny.
And now, Radiohead's Creep. All I see is Sad Rocket.
And then the beginning of, Guardians 2. Not Guardians 2, but Guardians as well. The first Guardians, where it's the I Got a Feeling or whatever it's called. That's burned into everyone's mind.
Stuck on a Feeling.
Stuck on a Feeling, yeah.
Yeah.
Stuck on a Feeling.
Like that, and of course, musicals.
Yeah, that's funny.
I'll say what I say about La La Land, but City of Stars.
There's some bangers in that movie for sure.
Yes,
that
there
movie's
is.
a fucking banger.
Yes, there is.
That's awesome. All right, man, that was a good talk. I hope everybody enjoyed that. Did you enjoy it?
I enjoyed it.
Did you learn something?
I enjoyed it.
Well, thank you guys for listening to this episode of the Filmsteins. I hope you guys had a blast. Remember, you can join us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for brand new episodes of the Filmsteins over on Patreon and Pandora and Spotify and Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts, I think, for the next month. I think it's going away December 31st, so rest in peace. That's the one I use. God damn it. But until next time, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Filmsteins. Thanks for tuning in and joining us on our cinematic journey. We hope you enjoyed our discussion and gained some new insights and perspectives on the world of movies. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform, especially Patreon at patreon.com/Filmsteins, and follow us on social media for more film-related content. We love hearing from our listeners, so if you have any feedback, suggestions, movie recommendations, or book recommendations, please feel free to reach out to us. Until next time, keep watching and keep loving the magic of movies. This is the Filmsteins, signing off.